What's up, Soul Family? Coming at you with another collective reading. This one's gonna be on. We have Cup, and that is you should accept valid criticism. That being said, if you're interested in a one-on-one reading, you can do so by directly messaging me or the link in the bio. The first reading will be $35 for up to 20 minutes, and you can ask whatever questions you want, or I can simply pull and see what comes out. If nothing resonates, then I'll simply refund you. That being said, let's see what the criticism is around or what area we're trying to kind of like focus on, and we'll go from there. This looks like it's more or less just like a growth reading, I guess, kind of like a reading that's pointing us towards maybe aspects we can maybe refine and get better in. So we have tree, which is affairs with your family. Dog barking, which is advice from a friend. Sometimes we gotta listen to our friends, man. Our friends be telling us stuff, and we don't listen to what they gotta say. And then last but not least, we have nest, with an emotionally secure, loving family is important to you. So before I go any further, well, that works. I was gonna pull a card from the Marvel deck, but one just flew out. And it is Wiccan, which is self-control. Never heard of it. So this is a card that's pretty much pointing towards like taking it easy. It's like you might be headstrong, you might be wanting to kind of just get things done, but there's also a way to, I guess, get it done versus forcing things and not allowing the energy or situations to unfold. I think sometimes when we try to force things to happen is when things don't work out the best versus when we allow things to unfold naturally. And sometimes, there is friction a part of how things unfold, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. That's just a part of the unfolding process. So we have the strength card. So the strength card points towards a lot of times being reserved. It's like having the strength of a lion, but knowing how to still walk amongst humans. It's not allowing that inner ferocity to kind of take control of situations. So maybe it's pointing towards like, especially when it comes to, I would say, family members and people in general. In my experience, there are people who are genuinely loving and kind-hearted, and it's very difficult when people are taught and conditioned to believe certain things, and that might contradict what we ourselves know to be true. And I think it's important to give those individuals grace because it's not always easy to be conditioned against something and then have something else be presented to you. And then how people will then come to process and reconcile with those differences or things that they were not necessarily accepting of. It might just take time for some people. For some people, it's a little faster. They're able to kind of move along a little bit smoother with, recognizing and understanding certain concepts. For some people, they have great intentions and it just takes time for them to fully digest and incorporate and grasp certain things. Now, this is important to be noted that some people just they're not going to fucking get it. Not in this lifetime, and they will die ignorant. So I think it's important to keep in mind that there are some individuals like that. But I'd like to think that there are many people who are very good, well-natured and good-intended that might not necessarily have the means to fully incorporate or digest or understand certain concepts because it can almost be it can almost like send somebody's nervous system into like overwhelm or like overload their system basically. It can destabilize, like certain things can destabilize individuals. And with how difficult society is, it's not uncommon to have to kind of work around how people are able to then digest and take certain bits of information in, especially if it's something that might be deeply interwoven into their system around fear or anything along those lines. So then we have the Ten of Swords and the Knight of Cups. So the Ten of Swords, a lot of times, it has the energy of like maybe there's like some kind of era ending and there's some kind of like something that's shifting. But where there are endings, there are also beginnings. And also with the Knight of Cups, it's like the energy of there being like sincere gestures. Sometimes the Knight of Cups energy can be the energy of somebody who is not as mature as a king. They're still learning how to step into their emotions and learning how to process and learning how to integrate certain things, especially when they were maybe not made to feel safe being able to even do such prior. So I think it's really important to be mindful that sometimes people are sincere with how they're approaching things, but they might just not necessarily have the capacity to digest certain things, and it might not necessarily be, safe for that person to do such. And again, sometimes it's not always easy to then have to experience endings as a result of whatever this is, But at the very same time, there are new beginnings that come about, and sometimes the end result of what we want will still come about, even if there's a specific era or time or period that might not conclude or lead up to that resolution. Then we have the Two of Swords. So maybe there's like a lot of uncertainty, and that's perfectly fine. Like sometimes there is just like a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, a lot of confusion held around things. And that's kind of just the nature of how it is in the physical reality when we're limited. But what I will say is the more that you start to trust your intuition, you build that muscle up, like this becomes basically like nothing. And I have moments where I'm a lot of times where I'm stressed, freaking out, and anxious, whatever else. But there's so many times like where because of the fact that I'm continuing to trust my intuition, I'm seeing the signs, I'm seeing the feedback, I'm seeing things that are pushing me towards where I want to be. And it's one of those things where it's like you're navigating certain situations in the dark, but it's also trusting that you are sensing how to then take that next step without falling off the cliff. And that seems really convoluted to walk in the dark without, knowing that you're not going to fall off that cliff. But sometimes that is the only thing you can do is just, feel up the next step and kind of take each little piece, each little step forward as you are navigating certain situations. I'll pull one more or two more, and then I'll do like the bottom of the deck because I feel like otherwise the readings end up almost going too long. So this one definitely wants to come out. And then here's one that's like sticking out right here. I'll take that. So we have the Eight of Pentacles, the Ten of Cups, and then we have the Queen of Cups. So let me kind of like organize these really quick. So ultimately, the Ten of Cups energy, like where we are with the family, where we have like everything that we desire, where we're connected and we're being fulfilled, is what's going to come. We're working towards this energy. So it's not like it's not going to be resolved in this way. It's just a matter of trusting that we're going to get there through whatever actions we're taking, even if that includes like temporary moments of separation or anything along those lines. And with the Eight of Pentacles, it's like the connection's already there and it's already good. There's nothing wrong with how it might be at the moment, even though you might want it to be better, but trust that it's being built up to get to the point where you want it to. And then last but not least, the Queen of Cups makes me feel as if it's like continue to treat this connection as a Queen of Cups would. It's like I will forever die on the hill that well, it's called emotional intelligence. But there are so many people, especially within the Western world, that have this conditioned belief that empathy or operating out of strictly what they conceive to be logic is the best way to kind of go about things. When in reality, being able to empathize and use your emotions in a healthy way will get you just as far. And I'm not saying you have to just, trust and connect to everybody and be all love and light and completely disregard signs. I think empathy without boundaries is like a gun. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. But I think when you're able to have empathy in a very healthy way, when empathy is exercised in a healthy way, I think it can lead to astronomical results in how you experience reality. So I think the more we continue to apply empathy and compassion and care and being very mindful of how we interact with people, it can help, especially when it comes to family, like over time, build the connections that we want and then help foster that long-term bond that's getting us to this Ten of Cups energy. Sometimes it's just a matter of like the path being walked and things unfolding and things happening the way they need to for you to get to this resolution. So just because things might not be the way that you want them to be now, doesn't mean they're not going to. Doesn't mean they're going to stay that way. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get to the point where you want them to be. But that being said, peace and blessings, and I'll catch you guys in the next reading.